Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. In today's lesson, we will talk about the inversion of intervals, how they change in number and quality. In the past couple of lessons, we went through the concept of intervals and the difference between perfect and imperfect intervals. If you want to learn more about them, I suggest you go to the last lesson and the one before. One of them is about intervals in general and perfect intervals, and the other is about imperfect intervals. And what we see here is a bit the summary of what we learned last times. Just to recap, perfect intervals are the unison, the fourth, the fifth, and the octave. They can be either perfect, augmented, or diminished, while the imperfect intervals are the second, the third, the sixth, and the seventh. They can be either major or minor, and then augmented or diminished. So now let's talk about interval inversion, which is a very, very important concept in intervals. If we take any interval, in this case between C and A flat, so that's a minor sixth, if you remember. So how do we count it? Basically from, if you start from a C major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's a major sixth, and then one semitone down, that's a minor sixth. Now, if we want to invert, what that means is that the A flat is lower than the C. Basically, this is the idea of an inversion. There's two ways that you can do it. Either you go with C up one octave, so from here, then you go here. So we move this C to here, while we kept the A flat where it is. In this case, the inversion shows that A flat is lower than the C. Or the other way, back from here, we can lower the A flat down one octave. And then this one goes down to here. Now we have... The end result is basically the same. This or this, just one octave difference. And basically in music harmony, we don't really care in which octave it is. It's more the relation between the notes. So this and this are practically the same in concept. So we did the inversion, and you can see, okay, we're starting with A flat and then C afterwards. What you will look is that this is not a minor sixth, doesn't look like a minor sixth, because now the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 4 semitones in between. And if you remember well, 4 semitones, basically that's a major third. And if you think about it, if you're starting from a C, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a major third, right? So 1, 2, 3, major third. In this case, it's a major third that starts from A flat. So that's quite interesting. So a minor sixth that starts from C, if it's inverted, it gives a major third that starts from A flat. That's a very interesting concept because it's not always major or minor. The same two notes, they can be in some context major and in some context minor. In some context a third and in some context a sixth. Think about that. So when we're measuring intervals, we are always measuring from the bottom note to the top note. If you remember, the interval has interval quality, which is the letter we use, major, minor, diminished, augmented, and an interval number. In this case, we're always measuring from the lower note, from C to A flat. When we invert, now we're measuring from the lower note, which is A flat, to C. And so we need to designate it in a different way. So now let's talk about the inversion, starting by the inversion of quality. The rule is pretty simple. Whenever we have a perfect quality, the inversion is also perfect. Whenever we have a major, the inversion is minor when we invert. Whenever we have minor, the inversion is major. So you remember here we were in minor, and the inversion is major. Whenever we have augmented, the inversion is diminished. And whenever we have diminished, the inversion is augmented. And if you keep this rule in mind, basically perfect always invert within perfect. Major and minor switch between each other, and diminished and augmented switch between each other. Here I color-coded them just to make life a little bit easier for you. So that was for the quality. If you can keep that in mind, then that's half of the job. The other part is inverting the number. You saw how a minor 6 becomes a major third, and so there is a rule also for inverting the number of intervals. And so the rule is start with the number 9, deduct the number of the old interval, and then you get the number of the new interval. And just memorize that rule, and then it will be very, very straightforward. So for example, if we are in a second and we inverted 9 minus second, we reach a seventh. If we are in a third, it gives a sixth. If we are in a fourth, it gives a fifth. If we are in a fifth, it gives a fourth. If we are in a sixth, it gives a third. And if we are in a seventh, it gives a second. And remember, here we were in the minor sixth. So 9 minus 6 is 3, so that's a third. And the minor switches to major, so that's a major third. So to put them all together, if we have an inversion of a major 6, so the major becomes minor, and the 6, basically 9 minus 6 is a third, and so it's a minor third. So the inversion of major 6 is a minor third. If we have an augmented fourth, the inversion of augmented is diminished, and the fourth is basically 9 minus 4 becomes a fifth, and so it's a diminished fifth. The inversion of diminished second, the diminished becomes augmented. For the 2 or the second, 9 minus 2, it gives us seventh, and so we have an augmented seventh. So the inversion of a diminished second is an augmented seventh. And then the example of the inversion of a minor seventh, so the minor becomes major. 7 means 9 minus 7, we reach a second. And so the inversion of a minor seventh is a major second. So just to give a very quick example, if we're doing from a C, you remember the major seventh is basically the seventh note on the scale. So that's a major seventh, that's a minor seventh. And now let's invert it. So we lower the top B flat down by 1 octave. And so this is a major second. And how do we count it? We're starting from the B flat major scale, right? And so 1, 2, major second. So here are some of the examples. Here we are in the A major scale and the A key. And so we start with the first one, which is a major third. We have D and F sharp. That's a major third. And so we can invert it by either lowering the upper note or raising the lower note by 1 octave. In this example here, we raised the lower note by 1 octave, so we are here. So this is a minor 6. So the major became minor and the 3 became 6 because 9 minus 3 equals 6. And if you want to double check about it, basically what we assume is, assume for a second you are in the scale of F sharp. Okay, so we have F sharp and D. And how do you count it? Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the major 6, and that's the minor 6th, basically. And so it checks out. Major third, minor 6th. So let's take the next example here. As we are in the A major key, so basically we have C sharp and G sharp. That's a perfect fifth. Okay, and how you can always check it basically is either by number of semitones, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or assume for a second you are in the C sharp major scale, and so it's the fifth letter basically, G sharp, and so that's a perfect fifth. So the inversion can be either we lower the G sharp by 1 octave, or we raise the C sharp by 1 octave, which is the case here. And so as we said, the perfect, when it inverts, it's also perfect. So here P remains P, but then the 5 becomes 4 because 9 minus 5 is 4. And if you want to check this one, so either you count the semitones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is for a perfect fourth is 5 semitones, or you assume you are in the scale starting from G sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect fourth. So let's move to the next one. We have here G natural, and above that F natural, which is an augmented 6. So from here we can lower the upper F down 1 octave, and we have a diminished third, which actually coincides with the major second, right? I mean, they overlap, as I mentioned before, that different intervals, they overlap. Usually it's a bit contextual on what basis we call it major second or diminished third. At the end of the day, it's the same thing practically. And just to double check, so assume here you are in the F major scale. It doesn't matter in what key signature we're writing and or in which scale we are actually at. It doesn't matter. It's just counting from the lower note. You just assume for a small second that you are in the F major scale, and so F, G, A, major third, minor third, diminished third. At the same time, F, G, major second. So it's the same. It checks out. And in the last one, we start from E and F sharp. Remember, we are in the key of A. That's a major second. And so we can invert basically either we lower the upper note or we raise the lower note. In this case, we raise the lower note by 1 octave. So we go to E here. And this is a minor seventh. And to double check that, either you count the semitones or so you assume your major scale starts temporarily from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's major. Yeah? And that's minor seventh. And so it also checks out. So again, as a quick recap, perfect becomes perfect, major becomes minor, minor becomes major, augmented becomes diminished, diminished becomes augmented. The numbers, you take 9, you deduct the old number, you get the new number. So basically 7 becomes 2, 6 becomes 3, 5 becomes 4, 4 becomes 5, and so on. And that's it for now. If you have any question, go ahead and write it in the comment section. I'll make sure to answer as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe for more. I'm very close to get my target to 100 subscribers, so I really appreciate if you do. And I'll be posting around 1 lesson per week to help you in your learning journey. And I wish you a fantastic musical day.